We are back. Before we went on the break, we promised a soundbite that came straight from the heart, and Gashuri, the translator, is right here to tell us what the president was saying. So let's hear what the president had to say today in Murang'a County about the war on graft.
Todo adu marona tare itheru wiro uyu no ukurutwo na nimo kuigwa andu makiambia kunyitwo nimo kuigwa andu makiambia kunyitwo na kameme gaka tiko gagututhura we aka gatiga kurekia ria gakurekia ni uthio cire aitho cokie indo cia muingi kana kinyothie mugaikaraga na mundu uria wa 2020 mwiranagia uria mwiyaga na uria mwekaga hamwe uguo niguo guguthie na uguo niguo cira.
Gashuri amesema nini?
The president is saying that very soon there will be big corruption cases. I mean, big people will be arrested, will be prosecuted, and so on and so forth. Actually, he's even saying that those who think speaking too much in the media will help them, it will not help them, and that they have options, two options, either to return what they have looted back to the public, or else they find themselves in committee talking to some guys who also stole some 20,000 shillings or thereabout, how they managed to steal from each other. Well, you see, earlier on the president even conceding that, runaway corruption could force Kenyans to revolt. That's a very serious admission. It shows that it's getting to some levels that are unimaginable or intolerable. And look at what people are saying on Twitter, that, they're tired. Let me borrow Yvonne's word, they're tired. And that fatigue, tired. Then that fatigue is informed by certain things. Look, when these projects are mooted to benefit the public, and they don't end up benefiting the public, they benefit a few people, and people cannot access the very same services that they were expected to get from this investment, then you find reasons for why people are getting tired. When you go to hospitals and people are sharing beds 3-3, then you have a problem there.
Our priorities again.
And Jamila, I agree with Francis that Kenyans are tired. They're tired with corruption, but I think they're also very tired about what looks like empty threats from the president.
Precisely.
Very repeated. Every time he seems to suggest he'll do something, but he never moves a candle. Nothing. Whether it's in the cabinet, which by the way there are a lot of questions about members of his cabinet. There are lots of questions about the ambassadors that he appointed. There are lots of things that, if confirmed as true, will actually put the president in bad light when it comes to all these statements that he's been making. In fact, if Robert can just play for us about CSs, the threat to new CSs that he made just a few days ago. Yeah, we do have it. Yes, let's please listen. Yeah.
And I say this to you, and I say it to those behind me, that should you at any time feel the weight is too much, just say so. Just say so. There are other Kenyans ready to do the job. Sijui kama tumekubaliana wenzangu. Na nasema hivyo kwa heshima kwa kila mtu. Should you? Hamna haja tuendelee. Au ni namna gani? Ndio tuheshimiane.
Look at that, Jamila. What are you saying? Are you unhappy with the members of your cabinet?
Yeah.
What presidents do when you're unhappy with the members of your cabinet, if you want to do the human thing, then you reshuffle. You send them to other, you shift them around. But if you want to do the clean, bigger thing, you actually fire them. He has never done that. He's never, I think in 5-6 years now, voluntarily shuffled his cabinet.
Joe, what's your take on that? Because I remember when he spoke at a public event, I'm trying to remember where it was, and the agriculture CS was in trouble. This president spoke again from the heart in mother tongue.
Jamhuri Park.
It was Jamhuri Park. And he was upset. And we kept thinking, is anything going to happen? But nothing did.
I think we have a political culture problem in this country. We don't call things by their name. Why am I saying that? There are people that have left government even before, ostensibly because of corruption, but we never said it. And for me, this is what I think is a problem with how we deal with these things. That people will live quietly and we find other ways of explaining it. But if we were to have, for example, the president, because I mean, the truth of the matter is that he's limited in what he can do. There are certain things that he cannot do, but there are things he can do. And one of the things he can do is call us a press conference or whatever it is and say, today, I have fired so and so and so and so because of ABCD. So if it is, yes, so if it is corruption, let's say because we have zero tolerance to corruption in government, I have fired this person, this one, and this one. Okay, what does that say? That says that actually the reason I'm firing you is corruption. That means I don't like this corruption thing. So many times we find that people have been implicated, even if they have not been found guilty, but the fact that they've been implicated and they're sitting there making decisions on our behalf and doing things that are supposedly in our name with that tag hanging over them, I think that is a problem. So the president's role, in my view, in the fight of corruption is also at that level to send the message, the clear message that this thing is unacceptable, it will not be allowed. And then now, of course, let all these other bodies do what they are constitutionally mandated to do, because he cannot take people to jail. It's not his job. But at least from the perspective of sending a powerful message that this thing is not acceptable, I think that helps to set the norm, to set the tone even within government, that people know that this thing is just not what you do.
But Yvonne, you could say, oh, I appointed a new DCI, I appointed a new DPP, there was the huge anti-corruption conference, all these commitments were made. You can say, I'm actually doing something.
Talking. That could be it. I mean, just on to what you had said about Mwangi Kiunjuri, and he censured him not once, not twice.
3 times.
Three times.
Yes.
In public. And the third in public. And the third time was, mother tongue. And he seems to resort to that. And understandably so, when you really want to express yourself, and perhaps also politically speaking to a particular constituency. And that is all well and good with what the president has been saying about it. But, we have seen him take action before. Remember, during his first term, he did, send home, 4 or 5 cabinet secretaries?
Yes.
Charity Ngilu was amongst them, among others. And he has done it before. But the idea about talk, the idea about pushing this agenda, in fact, might also work to his detriment. To some extent, at what point will he end up looking like a lame duck president? Like all you're doing is, talking about it and talking about it. And there's also the interesting thing he talked about, the revolt. Is the president calling for a revolution from the people? Is he now, what was that message? Is he now taking the mandate to the people to say, I have tried this, I have failed, and now I'm asking you to have a revolution? In line with that, what's the threshold for our anger as a country? When is enough enough? And maybe the president is now sort of handing it over to the people to say, enough is enough. What are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
Before he does
tired?
that, before he hands over to the people, there's one more thing he can do. One more thing. You see, the people that are accused of perpetuating mega corruption, he meets them almost every Thursday in a room, a cabinet meeting. Let him start there. I mean, it is the easiest place to start. When his ministers are accused of perpetuating grand corruption, that is the safest place to start. Actually, he doesn't even need any law. He doesn't even need to consult too much. If they are accused of corruption and there is evidence, I mean, the DCI is saying ABCD is happening, start there. Ask them politely, you guy, you're accused of mismanaging this and this amount of money. Please, quote unquote, left. If you're found clean, you will come back, number one. Number two, what does he want? What does the president want the people to do?
Yeah.
The other day he asked us, munataka nifanye nini? So what does he want the people to do? Now, the question that people should also now ask him is, unataka tufanye nini? Because there are institutions, there are laws, many of them, to fight corruption. But seemingly there is a problem. Maybe there is need to discuss this issue a little bit more, and the president needs to be a little more firm on this. It reminds me of a story. When we were growing up, if you have a harsh mother or a harsh father, and ako harsh maneno, nakwambia wewe, usipofanya hivi nitakuchapa.
And they never do.
And they don't. You get to a point and you're like, madheni kelele tu anapiganga. So probably we've gotten to that point where they're saying, China president.
And we're stealing in the billions, millions in kidogo
In the
sana.
meantime,
And luckily, our mothers didn't have the option of doing a reshuffle. Because
Yes, stuck with you. They're stuck with you.
yes, but I just wanted to mention what else I think should not be playing out like it appeared today, and that is the element of nice guy, bad guy.
Good cop, bad cop.
I thought it was a bad show from the president and his deputy today, because for all those who can interpret what was going on today, they were not reading from the same script. The deputy president spoke about this issue, responding to this issue of the dams at the judiciary event.
And the president was there.
Didn't
Yes, in his
touch it at
speech he
all.
didn't comment about it at all.
Then he goes to Murang'a
Yes.
and talks about it in apparent reference. When he talks of people rushing to microphones and all that, who are those? The only person who rushed to the microphone today was William Ruto, the deputy president.
Who, by the way, was not supposed to be at the event.
He was not
Yes, he
supposed to be-
spoke about it and said
So
he
that's-
thought his
yeah.
invitation had gotten
Yeah.
lost in the mail.
Yes. Now, presidents don't run sections of government. They run whole governments. And he needs to take responsibility, whether the scandal is in KVDA or in Thwake or in Mombasa or wherever. Because the problem starts emerging where you see him sort of playing the nice guy and the other chap is defending himself.
When you talk about corruption and the fact that now we have all these new ones coming up every other day, and you had the 4-point-something billion shillings today that was spoken about by the ESCC CEO about some procurement that was being done for, I think, security equipment. He said that thank God they stopped it before actual money was paid. It takes me now to what is happening in the counties. And the more recent one is the one in Samburu. And we spoke about it last week, 2 billion shillings. And when we break it down and look at what exactly happened on the ground, it worries me about how things could be happening right there in the counties. Devolution, we're having the devolution conference next week in Kirinyaga. And one of the main issues, of course, is how money is being spent in the counties. I remember we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago when 0 shillings was spent on development in about 25 counties, if I'm not mistaken. And we look back at instances where we had wheelbarrows costing over 1 million shillings. We had curtains costing millions of shillings. We had a gate going for 7 million shillings. We had a Facebook page for 1.2 million shillings. And it's
It was 2
ridiculous.
million,
Yeah, it is ridiculous about how money is being spent. A lot of money is being spent on things we are calling flimsy. So let's listen to one Adan Duale, Member of Parliament, and listen to him talking about county allocations.
Mkono moja unasema pesa mashinani, mkono mwingine hutaki tukuulize maswali. Hii pesa si ya mama yako bwana. Hii pesa si ya baba yako. Hii pesa ni ya Wakenya, na lazima watu waulizwe.
Joe, remember that?
Yes, but of course that was a time when Isaac Ruto, who
Was
at
the chair of
at that
COG.
time was the chair of COG, and he was actually giving a lot of problems to the national government.
Pesa
Remember there was
Mashinani.
this Pesa Mashinani thing, which some people said was Pesa Mashimoni, I think that's what they were saying.
Mashakani.
And Mashakani and all of those things. But for me, I think what is tragic, which is what is characteristic of our politics over and over again. Remember that context that was there, so it becomes very difficult to know whether that was actually genuinely seeking accountability or it was settling political scores, which is what defines most of our conversations about corruption. But yes, I mean, when it comes to counties, we've seen ridiculous, I mean, like we had Samburu County the other day.
Yes.
I was watching that story, it was done by Gashuri.
I thought he was coming up with the
I thought he was
figures.
coming up because the figures were simply not ending. I asked myself, how much money does this county have, you know? And if indeed that were to be just the tip of the iceberg, which I think it is, and you think about 46 other counties out there that have had their own share of this shame, then really we are saying that the corruption that we used to talk about now is now down in the counties. And in Nairobi, we have a lot of, whether they're civil society organizations, even the media has a greater capacity in Nairobi to sort of check what county the national government is doing, probably county Nairobi and all of that. But I don't think that there's sufficient capacity, whether in the media, whether it is civil society, to sufficiently check what is going on in the counties, provide oversight. Because remember, the MCAs are supposed to be doing that, but they're also busy going for all these trips and blackmailing governors to get whatever kind of favors, to the extent that you don't get a sense that what is going on there is actually oversight. It is more like scratch my back, or I scratch yours, or I'm going to kill you.
But let's not take away devolution, the benefits that some of these counties have gotten from devolution.
Certainly.
Yes.
I mean, there's been some good things happening there, but why would we be surprised at, we're saying corruption has been devolved. But remember, we were all part of then what was called the central government, right? So all of these people are the same ones, and they're now in the counties. It's just because there's been a demarcation of lines. So now we have, 48 governments, including the national and the 47 counties. These are the same people. We had issues within the county councils, the municipal councils, the city councils. So let's not act like what is happening at the counties, oh my gosh, we devolved it. These were some of the issues. These were even some of the issues in terms of, devolution of a number of these services. Remember with Kinuthia Wamangia, that the Transition Authority?
Yes.
And there was a sudden push, even with health. It was very political in terms of, bring it, even before the capacity was created. A lot of this corruption you would have seen in the Narok County Council, in, Nairobi City Council. So this corruption was there. Perhaps it's just that now these are sort of more formal entities, and now that money is going there to those specific regions. So this is an issue that has always been with us, and because we're not finding a way to fight it, it then finds itself in the countries.
So we devolved corruption. That's what you're saying.
We always had corruption there. It's just more formal now.
And indeed, there's never been corruption of this scale ever in the history of the country.
Right.
Do the math. Count the amount of money that is involved. There's never been anything
and the spread.
And the spread.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a national pastime, which is why I think even on this devolution issue, and they're meeting next week, I don't know what the assessment in Kirinyaga, what that will sound like. We need a national reorientation on what the role of government is. Because from the national government you can see those who are in trouble actually interpret power and being in government as an opportunity to get wealthy and make a few of your tribesmen happy. That is why even the charges these days, you look at the list of suspects, it lacks regional balance because it represents who is in power. Two, when you go to the counties, the same culture has been taken over there. And let's not forget it started with CDF. CDF was the first cookie jar that they went for. You find local MP, his cousin, they have boreholes, they have water projects.
In the CDF committee.
They sit in the CDF committee. Corruption has been devolved. There's something that needs to change about the mindset of people seeking office. Because DCI thinks he's busy right now with Samburu and dams. Open up the 46 other counties and see the devil blushing. Wow. Samburu County would look like a
child's play.
You see, the fundamental question that we should ask ourselves as we head to the devolution conference next week is, over 1 trillion shillings has been devolved in the last 6 years or so. When you're in Murang'a, in Turkana, in Kitui, in Garissa, do you feel the impact, the difference, the 1-point-something trillion shillings difference at the local level? If you can't, then it means the amount of money that has been devolved is going to the wrong places, one. Number two, most of the county governments have become like employment bureaus, So if a governor was assisted by such and such a team or certain people to get into office, the first people that he rewards with employment and positions in the county government are the people who worked for them. And so what do you do to the guys who are working for your predecessor? You find a way of kicking them out. So they're employment bureaus. And secondly, look at the control of resources at the county level. It's the same behavior that you see at the national level. I mean, you hear certain big people, big families are controlling government businesses. So even at the county level, the governor, the wife, the sons, the very close people are controlling those businesses. I mean, somebody at EACC was telling me they are probing a certain governor. Actually, two of them. One of them has 26 companies that are trading with the county government. Another one has 31 companies that are trading with the county government. I mean, so it means if you're left, let's say, with 2 billion shillings for development, all that 2
Everyone
billion
is-
shillings
yeah.
will go to one
One family, yes.
or a clique of people. Look, the county, the corruption that is being investigated in Samburu, the PA to the governor in about 4 years had amassed wealth of about 208 million shillings. The governor about 580 million shillings. We are not saying that they didn't own anything before they came into office, but you can tell there's a certain
that's what's been
growth.
allegedly investigated.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a certain growth in terms of largesse and in terms of what you own and everything, and it shows that definitely it's not just what you're making or what you're earning. It's more than that.
The point I wanted to make, Jamila, is
Yes,
that all these things must not cloud the one undeniable fact that devolution was a great idea, that it has made a great difference in a great many counties. I think the problem that we have here is that we run the risk now of giving devolution a bad name when you have all these people we put in positions of leadership, and instead of leading, they're actually eating, all right? So we have a situation where devolution is actually going down the wrong path because people have got the wrong idea about what this thing was supposed to do in the first place. So I think we really have to find ways of putting a lot of effort in dealing with corruption in the counties, because it runs the risk of messing up what was actually, in my view, one of the most novel ideas of the 2010 constitution.
So you're not even talking about the pending bills, the amount of money that county governments owe various traders. And you hear stories every so often that you're told by a governor or some certain people working in the governor's office, kama unataka kulipwa, tugawane. If the county government owes you 30 million, you're told tugawane hii pesa nusu so that you can be paid. And you do your math and you say, I'd rather lose a little bit of it. Okay, ni sawa tu. That's how corruption is being perpetuated.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to wind up now. It's time for the kicker, the angle, the take, the memo, and the punchline. So I'll start with my memo. Tonight it's about leadership and integrity. But I'll start in a land not so far away from here, Egypt. Yesterday, the country's transport minister, Hisham Arafat, resigned after a deadly train crash in Cairo, killed at least 25 people and left 50 others injured. Please understand that it is not the minister who was driving the ill-fated train, but he resigned. In India, the railway minister, Nitish Kumar, resigned after 2 trains collided, noting that the accident was more about criminal negligence than human error. That human error was, however, not committed by the minister himself, but he resigned anyway. In June 2016, UK Prime Minister David Cameron resigned following the referendum vote to leave the European Union. He had wanted his country to remain in Europe, but his people said otherwise, and he had to go. In that same country, a member of the House of Lords quit his government post after turning up late to answer questions, saying he was thoroughly ashamed of himself. Yes, thoroughly ashamed for simply arriving late in Parliament to answer questions. Now, at this time when scandals worth billions of shillings decorate the pages of our newspapers every morning, one would have expected a flurry of resignations, not because of any wrongdoing, but simply to take responsibility. Because when this looting happens, there's always a place where the buck stops. But we're in Kenya, and you'll clearly recall, for instance, the words of former Finance Minister and current Member of Parliament, Amos Kimunya, "I'd rather die than resign." He was under siege in Parliament over alleged improprieties in the sale of what is now Lyco Regency. He went and addressed a gathering of his supporters and made the now famous vow. In 2006, on being questioned over the Anglo-leasing scam, the then Vice President Mudi Awori said, "I will not resign. Who is my accuser and on what charge?" Article 73 of the Constitution describes in great detail the kind of leadership Kenyans need and deserve. It does not expressly ask anyone to resign, but the words there speak for themselves. Words like personal integrity, competence, objectivity, and impartiality. The oath of office taken by holders of public office is a promise before God and the people to uphold the sovereignty, integrity, and dignity of the people of Kenya, as well to do justice to all in accordance with the Constitution. While taking the oath, the leaders also promise to truly and diligently serve the people, and end with the famous 4 words, "So help me God." But today, it is perhaps the citizens who need God's help the most. The blatant looting is unprecedented. The audacity with which public resources are being pilfered is mind-boggling. And yet, there are men and women put in place by the people and the law to watch over public coffers. The Constitution presupposes that when we go for elections every 5 years, we would look for Kenyans who fit this bill. But I'm not holding my breath. When the time comes for another election, we shall once again leave the comfort of our beds at 3 a.m. to queue and elect the very same leaders. Leaders who would rather die than resign. Are we not tired? Are we not angry enough? Or are we just stupefied or dazed? That's my memo.
My kicker tonight, damn the irony. The irony is inescapable. First, some definitions. And the word we hear on the news gang, and indeed the entire country, have mentioned so many times this entire evening, dam, D-A-M. The English dictionary defines a dam as a barrier constructed to hold back water and raise its level, forming a reservoir used to generate electricity or as a supply of water. But the word dam has a second meaning. Listen to this. A dam is a rubber sheet used to keep saliva from the teeth during dental operations. No one should miss this irony here. Soon after independence in 1963, corruption in Kenya became a little trickle, began as a little trickle during President Jomo Kenyatta's 15-year reign. In 1965, the corruption trickle took the form of a maize scandal involving independence hero Paul Ngei, who, as Minister for Marketing and Supplies, made his wife Emma and her company Emma Stores the sole buyer and distributor of maize. Yes, maize, countrywide. Kenyatta's trickle paved way to the Moi-era corruption stream in the 80s that was exemplified by the construction of the Tarkwel Dam along the Turkana-West Pokot border. Because of corruption, Tarkwel Dam was constructed at 3 times the estimated cost. The stream became a river in the 1990s and was symbolized by the Goldenberg scandal that saw taxpayers lose 13.5 billion shillings as compensation to businessmen and, of course, government operatives for a fictitious export of gold. The Moi-era graft river grew bigger in the Mwai-Kibaki era and was epitomized by the Anglo-leasing and 16 other security-related tenders worth billions of shillings that ended up in private pockets. The Kibaki-era swollen river was followed by the opening of the floodgates by the Uhuru Kenyatta William Ruto Jubilee administration that hit the corruption scene with a bang. The last 6 years have been about floods of financial scandals, from the Ministry of Health to the NHIF, National Youth Service to the National Cereals Board, NCPB, and Kenya Pipeline to Kenya Power. The looting has been record-setting. And now we are talking dams, and with that, the metaphor of the graft waters that may have finally hit a dead end. The public anger and nationwide outrage that is greeting the dam scandal tonight is an encouraging indication that Kenyans are at last collectively tired of government-led corruption. Global trends in the fight against corruption are equally encouraging. No one, even powerful political leaders, really gets away with corruption these days. They all pay the price. From Brazil to South Korea, Guatemala to Israel, jail is a real prospect for the powerful and corrupt. That future is not too far here in Kenya. That is how progress works. It is stubborn, it moves forward, and yes, it somehow always wins. And to all economic criminals in our presence, be afraid. The day of reckoning is nigh. Have a fearful night.
Oh, very well. Now, let me punch a little bit. You see, President Uhuru Kenyatta was in Murang'a today and he spoke very angrily. And he has previously done so, spoken very angrily about corruption, lethargy by some of his cabinet secretaries and senior government officials, and promised to sack them. We have listened, we have heard, we are waiting. And there was more threats today. Let's hope they will amount to something. In fact, I want to dare Yvonne, Linus, Jamila, and Joe that the next time the president threatens any of his cabinet secretaries with a sack, or generally threatens them, that for every threat we'll be dropping 1,000 shillings here and we will use it for a charity of our choice. Every threat, 1,000. That's my punchline.
Every threat, 1,000.
Yeah.
Hapa kwa hii meza.
Are we in agreement before we carry on?
Yes, ni kidogo.
Oh, well.
Tafute damu.
Okay, so that is, we've taken up the challenge. And we'll give it to a charity, #NewsGang. Let's get to my take tonight. And as you can imagine, it's about the depressing state of our nation. To be more specific, the so-called fight against corruption. With every waking minute, there is a new scandal. In fact, just today, as we were preparing for this show, a new scandal broke. That in the security department, again, worth billions of shillings. It is not surprising, therefore, that corruption is the talk of town. Inevitably, this is one conversation that I had with my mother. She, like everyone else in this country, has a wide range of emotions on this subject. She is angry. She is full of despair. She's fed up, and she's shocked at the sheer audacity of the scandals that unravel each day. She watches the news in spite of herself, knowing she will hear of yet another brazen attack on our national resources. She reads the papers, flipping each page with her mouth wide open, her heart broken. When I asked her about it, perhaps seeking some age-old wisdom on where we go from here, she gave me a powerful analogy, which I will translate here, and I hope it has the same weight because it was delivered to me in my mother tongue. So in Western Kenya, where I come from, it is no secret that we love to eat birds of a number of varieties, from chicken to even quail that everybody was crazy about at some point. The quail is known as tsisindu. It's often a wild bird and is trapped using baskets called oluteru. Now, once the bird is trapped in the oluteru, you have to be very careful with how you carry the basket away to ensure that your meal is kept safe en route to the table. But what happens when the basket is tipped over, or someone with evil intention by the roadside comes and kicks the oluteru away, allowing the birds to escape? You run around desperately trying to catch each one. It's a rather futile attempt because the tsisindu, or the quail, are very small, nimble, and swift, and so they fly in different directions all at the same time. One ends up looking like a fool trying to catch each one. Which way do you turn? Which one do you start with? Folks, this is what our war on corruption now looks like. Trying to run after our meager resources that have been so carefully collected and are now flying in all directions at breakneck speed. Watching our livelihood, our food, our taxes fly into the wind, leaving us all hungry and confused. Sadly, my mother, like most of us, can't see a way out, especially when the talk on fighting corruption becomes just that, talk. And that is my take tonight.
You sure we can't catch any of those birds?
Try.
All right. Tonight, my angle, as you would expect, is about corruption. For the last several days, there has been a raging debate. It's not a new debate at all, to be honest, but it has the same sound every time I hear it. Some people questioning the motive of the seemingly increased impetus in the fight against corruption. Some have even suggested that this latest effort is targeting particular individuals, yet others have gone further to allege that it's about particular communities and regions in the country. Without a doubt, matters as grave as corruption will always draw widespread attention, and if it's happening at such a dizzying rate as we have here in Kenya, public interest will become even more pointed. Now, of course, I have no evidence either way that this notion that maybe someone somewhere may have crafted a scheme to use corruption to settle political or tribal scores is true. I don't know. But if it is true, that will be very bad. But let's face it, the country is in a bad place anyway. We seem to have a contest of bad manners. You see, a few years ago, corruption existed, but it was always a byproduct of projects, i.e., a project would be done, and somewhere in there, someone would get their cut. Today, corruption happens first, and if we are lucky, there might be a project in the end. Of course, all corruption is bad with or without a project in the end. But if we were ever in hospital because of corruption, now we are actually in the ICU. And that is sobering. So, anything that helps to fight this ogre that threatens to consume us alive can only be welcome. That means that if corruption is hiding in a tribe, a community, a county, or even inside an individual, by all means let us target it. If a majority of the corrupt are from the same gender, let's target them. If they are from the same age group, or the same height group, or the same weight group, or the same WhatsApp group, or whatever, let's target them. And if they are from the same church or mosque or 2022 campaign group or the president's inner circle, let's target them. And yes, if they happen to be from the same tribe, by all means, let's target them. After all, which tribe ever held a baraza to commission any of its daughters or sons of the soil to go forth and steal on its behalf? In closing, I'm reminded of a powerful scripture passage by Apostle Paul in the book of Philippians chapter 1, verse 15 to 18. And I will now quote. It is true that some preach Christ out of envy and rivalry, but others out of goodwill. The latter do so out of love. The former preach Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely. But what does it matter? The important thing is that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached. And because of this, I rejoice. I rest my case, for that indeed is my angle tonight.
Wow. Today you'll get a mention in church.
No,
on Sunday. No, you always do, but this one will be special.
I'm a church elder, by
yes,
the way.
yes. Which is very up. Now you will be associate pastor and then senior pastor and then
probably
bishop.
Above that.
But very well done. Oh, it's probably
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.